thank you all for coming out tonight. We had a closed session, so we've already had the call to order, and Mark Toscano, our attorney's got some comment on the closed session topics.
Yeah, just one other item other than what is listed on the public agenda. The board also did discuss a matter of personal confidential rights, including but limited to staff and students. This one matters, and specifically a student matter. That would be under block 1. So other than that, there's nothing else.
All right, and Dr. Adderhold will have some comments now.
Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to make a couple brief comments. On Friday, my colleagues in Mercer County and I put out a call to action regarding the alarming trends with teenage mental health concerns within our county. In the last 20 months, we have seen 17 suicides within Mercer County. And so there is going to be a program on January 9th at Rider University. The Traumatic Loss Coalition, as well as some other agencies, will be working with us for a presentation. We see this as the first of a series of topics. We'll be working with the Traumatic Loss Coalition in the new year, as well as organizations such as NAMI, AIR, and others, to work on some programming throughout our county. We're also working together on concerns regarding opioid addiction and the alarming trends that are happening there as well. A lot is happening with our 20-somethings, but they are happening to our graduates. The third initiative we'll be talking about is on vaping and the alarming trend concerning vaping that is occurring in the e-cigarette and vape world. The types of devices that students are now using to administer those types of products at home, in the community, and in our schools. Second topic I wanted to bring up is just to bring recognition to Senator Turner and Senator Greenstein, as well as Assemblyman Benson. Together, the Senator and the Assemblyman have introduced bills, Senate Bill number 3447, which is now passed through the full Senate, as well as Assembly Bill A5254, passed through Appropriations Committee, and will be moving to the full Assembly most likely on January 4th. Both bills are with respect to requiring the NJSIAA to allow public high schools in the same district and other multiple high school districts to merge in co-op programs if by any means necessary, with no restrictions, no penalties, which is different than the NJSI legislation that was just passed at the beginning of December. This is not limited to football, this is for all sports. So this protects any sport with an enrollment concern and would allow us to co-op across districts. If it passed on January 4th, it would move to Governor Christie due to the potential pocket veto or outright no or veto. It is then possible that it would be reintroduced in the new session because the Senate passed it 30-0 and the Assembly Committee passed unanimously as well. So right now we have had full Assembly and full Senate support. If those bills move forward, again, it could move to Governor-elect Murphy or Governor Murphy when he takes office. And again, that's the benefit of all of our student athletes if the need emerges. Which brings me to a decision that will need to be made this week and announced this week, which would be regarding to co-op or not to co-op the high school north and high school south football programs. The decision is placed with a timeline by the WJFL due to the need to construct the conferences. We have a Thursday deadline to provide a response as whether or not the district will now enact the newly adopted legislation that was passed by the NJSIA on December 5th or 6th or 7th, first Monday of the month essentially. That legislation allows groups 3, 4, and 5 football programs to co-op, but it does place some restrictions in place of it. So we're looking through data such as student participation rates, injury rates, and whatnot, and we have been in many conversations with our student athletes and our parents regarding the co-op or the not co-op, as well as our athletic director, our principals, and our coaches. As I said, that decision will be made and released on Thursday. Lastly, I just want to wish everyone a happy and safe holidays. So thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you. That brings us to our student representative reports.
Good evening, Board. Before I get to my agenda, I would just like to thank and wish happy birthday Dr. Adderhold and honor such a dedicated and motivated individual who's always working to make WPRSD a better place for everybody. While 2017 is coming to a close, the HSN Arts Department is not slowing down at all. Tomorrow there will be an a cappella concert in the theater at 7:30 p.m., followed by a jazz band performance at 7:30 on Thursday. And as for HSN's winter musical, Les Mis, the show has been fully casted and will be performed on March 1st through 4th. As for North Sports, the swimming team is off to a really solid start with 7 wins on both teams and 0 losses. Boys basketball also had a good start last week, winning their first game, and will hopefully continue their winning streak tonight against Piketown. And finally, North Fencing has their first meet of the season with Washington Hills this coming Thursday. As 2018 approaches, many seniors are receiving their early admissions or early decision application results, and everybody is excited with the prospect that a new chapter in their life is about to begin. So, again, Dr. Adderhold, happy birthday. Thank you, and happy holidays to all those celebrating.
Good evening, everyone. As 2017 is coming to a close, High School South is still their first day of activity. Last week, musical auditions for a sister act took place, and callbacks have been taking place this week. Winter sports have begun as well. And the music department, the band performed their winter concert last week along with the orchestra, who hosted their children's concert on Sunday, December 10th. The choir just sang their winter concert this past Friday night, though concert goers had to trek through the snow to get to the theater. The student council has already begun to plan their Winter Spirit Week and fundraiser, and are even in the midst of creating a senior citizens ball at which roles will be reversed and students will be the chaperones while the senior citizens dance the night away. Thank you for your time, and I hope you all have a happy and healthy holiday new year.
Thank you. All right, now Dr. Adderhold will do a presentation on the Chinese Bridge delegation.
Good evening, everyone.
Yep, it's on.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here tonight with Chair Sizemore. Chair is the world language supervisor for the district. Together, we had the opportunity to travel to both Beijing as well as Xiamen and spend 12 days over in China, right at the time of our elections, and right when President Trump was visiting in Beijing on the tail end of our trip together. So we wanted to give an opportunity to just talk a little bit about the experience. Talk about. Can everyone see the slide? Okay, we go just dim lights.
That's going to be a hassle.
All right, I'll keep going. Sherry and Gerard take care of. Gerard takes care of. So the bridge delegation takes place in partnership with the Confucius Institute, which is headquartered in Hanwha, which is the Ministry of Education in Beijing.
Arranged for us. This delegation was 100% delegation, and their focus was the mutual sharing of education practices between
The mic keeps dropping in and out.
Their focus was the mutual sharing of educational practices and strategies, and they were clearly very proud to show us what they were doing in China and progress and improvements they were making. And we're very interested in listening to us. In fact, Dr. Arnold, as the highest person on our delegation, was given 14 hours notice to make a 40-minute presentation on trends in American education. He didn't know what to do with all of that at the time. Thank you. They also are building towards the future by fostering the development of Chinese programs overseas, including the United States. And while they're looking at this in terms of these trading partners, they're also just making Chinese an international trade language like English is. And to do this, they extended the red carpet in a way that we can't even imagine. From the moment our wheels touched down in Beijing, they paid for everything. From our beautiful hotels, 3 meals a day, internal transportation before our flight down to Fujian and the Shanghai province and back, all the internal transportation to the schools and the activities. It was an amazing moment, and it really shows the extreme emphasis that the Chinese government is putting on education.
So the partner with the Han Bike is college. College Board for testing. The College Board also has a bar that extends within language development. And I would imagine that there's some motivation for future testing down the road. But they're looking at, for us, when we apply to participate in the program, we look at it through the dual language immersion program and trying to gain, myself, an opportunity to experience China, to gain a better cultural understanding, to have an opportunity to observe schools within China, and to observe the classroom and the instruction, and to learn from our colleagues and our partners with Chinese educators. And so it was just an amazing gathering of individuals, but it also allowed us to partner and learn from individuals that also are creating immersion programs already. So there were educators from all across the United States, but in particular Delaware, Utah, and Texas that have some of the most defined dual language immersion programs in the world. So we had an opportunity to work and to speak and to meet with some of those individuals on the delegation. From New Jersey, there was 10 educators for our state, so it also gave us an opportunity to work with some local partners. So the visit was both school visits and educational meetings, as well as historical sites. We saw things like Forbidden City, the Great Wall, and on the last day, I got to see the on our way to the airport. Sherry went back at the 5th time, so she did not see it. She's seen it before. But these are some of the opportunities. So just wanted to give you a sense of the trip. So, I've always seen the pictures of the Great Wall from the top, and not thinking about the steps that we did. What was it, 96 floors?
We climbed, according to my Fitbit, we climbed 96 floors and 20,000 steps on our way up. And then back down again. Thank you.
So we had the opportunity to meet the Ministry of Education, both in Beijing and against the regional province of Xiamen. Xiamen is in the Fujian province, and when you have to think of it equivalent to flying to like that. It was just under a 4-hour flight. We went from 30 degrees to 85 degrees. We went from city to palm trees. So very different. And I didn't have that mental model of that region of China. And the region is very close to Hong Kong. Taiwan. It's also an area that has had a lot of Western influence with foreign trade. So if you look at the facility of the buildings, you would see influences almost like Portuguese or Spanish in some of the architecture.
This is Tiananmen Square with the Forbidden City right behind it. So we had some opportunity to see there. This is also in Tiananmen Square celebrating the 68th anniversary of National Day in China. And here we are in Forbidden City, which is just vast open spaces. And it was beautiful this time of year because it wasn't crowded. My previous trips have been taking summer camp students when it was super crowded, which is a very stressful situation. It's the most enjoyable trip to the Forbidden City I've ever had. But this is the Meridian line, which only the emperor was allowed to be his PowerPoint was carried up that. The bearers had to use the stairs, only he was allowed to go over the dragon. Everybody else had to use stairs on either side.
Just another building within the city. So our delegation was welcomed to John, the Shaman, regional deputy minister, and Sherry, as one of our fluent Mandarin speakers, became sort of chief spokesperson for our push of the delegation. We had approximately 8 Mandarin speakers of various levels. No one who could carry, with the exception of the native speakers, no one could carry Portuguese Sherry's. Now I just have to take their word for it. That's what I was. but everywhere we went, Sherry is often the individual who presented the delegation plaque of thanks and gave the words of welcome and acceptance for the delegation, which we are very proud of for our mission.
Mr. Day, I also had about something to notice the first time I had to do this.
So some of the observations, Sherry's going to jump in here, but their school day is a lot of there's similarities, but there's vast differences. And so Sherry's going to go into that today, and I'll jump in as we go.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the Chinese school day is like. And when you first tell people that students tend to be in school from 7:30 or 7:45 in the morning until about 10 o'clock at night, their eyes get about this big. But when you talk about the way the day works, it's not that different from our students. One thing is different, and at the opening school, some people can correct me, I think, but I'm pretty sure every school in China, I've known about this for years, starts with the Zao Cao, which is the morning exercises. It focuses the mind, it wakes up the body. And if you've never seen 5,000 students exercising in unison, you're about to see a picture. We couldn't get all 5,000 of them on there, but it's an amazing thing, and it happens every single morning in every school in China. The day has a more relaxed pace than ours. Our high schools are going about 5 minutes between classes. They run 10 minutes. Students have a chance to chat, text, talk to their friends, go to the bathroom, whatever. And there's something called shui, the noon rest, where depending on the school that you're in, you have an hour and a half to 2.5 hours break in the middle of the day, which is something our students don't have. We have a 35-minute lunch. But they stay in the classroom. Teachers tend to go to the classroom. Students stay there. They eat their lunch, and then they can read, sleep, do homework, talk quietly, whatever they want, as long as they're just resting and taking a break from the day. Afternoon classes run until about 5 o'clock, and then they have what the school that we spent the most time in called clubs. It was what the equivalent of our students would call after-school activities. And the one we had was amazing. It had absolutely everything. There was the jump rope club, the Rubik's Cube club, the basketball, the baseball, the cheerleading, the choreography. There were 150. I'm not going to try to name them all. But they're very serious about it. In order to be successful in the jump rope club, you had to jump rope 167 times in a minute. To be successful in the Rubik's Cube club, you had to be able to do it blindfolded, one-handed, in less than a minute. I was very successful. But they were all, it was a jazz club, but they had all different kinds of dance. They were very, and the teachers were good. There was flute, there was art, and whatever they did, they were serious about it, and they were good. And then there's an hour and a half dinner break. It's from 5 to 6:30. The school makes it healthy. Love it. If it's anything like what the bed is, it's not very good. But the food was delicious, some of the best food we had in the schools. So they had an hour and a half to chat with their friends and socialize. And then from 6:30 to 9:30 is homework tutorial. And those kids do their homework. And teachers rotate staying and helping them do their homework. So there's not the temptation to get online or to play video games. You're just doing your homework. You're going to go home by 9:30 or 10. You're done. You're done. The focus and attitude, I think, is something I'm very, very impressed with. And that what they're doing is part of what can we share with them and what can they learn from us? What can we learn from them? And I think this focus on the future and the idea of delayed gratification, one thing they're very strong with is discipline and self-discipline in the schools. And while there certainly is an externally exposed structure by the teachers, it's not, when you deal with externally exposed discipline, it's internal, it's self-discipline. And I think it's because they buy into the idea that what they do now impacts the kind of life they will have in the future. And I think that's something worth our exploring. Great respect for teachers. The teacher walks in, they all stand up, they sit down. When if the teacher asks a question, that's how they raise their hand. They stand up. If the teacher calls them an answer, sit back down. No one is disrespectful to me. I've never seen it. Constant drive to be your best self. And that's really good, but it's also a little bit competitive driven. There's a little piece to that I'll talk about in a minute. But students and teachers all have this huge pride and ownership in the school. The teachers run the school. And the students helped take care of the school. And they were so proud. I'm sure it's going to see some of these facilities. No one was proud. But I think you'll be impressed with it. Speaking of facilities, they were very intentional. The new designs are, well, you'll see, what fosters student learning, what fosters student comfort, how can we bring the community in, this is not an issue. The teacher role. The teachers had 2 classes a day, only 2, 40-minute classes, which some of our teachers really like that at. But the student load is the same. There's about 50 to 55 students in each class. And the teachers serve as assistant principals. They do all of the work that our assistant principals do. There's one principal for 5 classes students. And so the teachers run everything else. They have amazing parent communication. They would be sitting over long, 7:30 until, right o'clock at night, 9:30 at night. And so there's constant texting back and forth. The school we visited each teacher had the responsibility to visit every single family of every single one of their students within the first month of school. And I know that, I'm sure the structure is a little different, but I know that idea is common throughout China because I spoke with a teacher in Beijing who had been teaching in Beijing, became an exchange teacher here. And she said, I loved when I was teaching in the United States because nobody texted me at 10 o'clock at night and expected an answer. And then the only other thing I want to tell you about the teachers is the weekly competitions. Again, part of the drive to be your best self is very competition driven. So you submit a 20-minute lesson plan and you're going to probably over that. You submit a 20-minute video and grade in order. They even have handwriting competition. I'm going to do that 5 years ago. But anyway.
I guess for me, one of the things that was remarkable for the intentionality of design, facilities, and you'll see it starts in a minute, but also the idea that high school classes did rotate, which is just a very different concept. Where the students were assigned to a cohort of 50 to a teacher that taught Mandarin, English, and mathematics. Students did rotate for electives, and did rotate for science. But for the majority part, the classroom was their room that they stayed in for lunch or for break. Lockers were in the back room. And that was consistent with the schools that we visited. Now, we recognize that we were showing very specific schools, mostly newer schools, and showed the schools that had tremendous accolades for their achievement, for the children, for students' achievements. But in schools that we saw, that was consistent. So this is an example. And so of one of the schools that we walked into. What I found was you walked onto the campuses. You didn't just walk in. What we were experiencing, what we were showing, you did not just show up and go to Boys Hall Elementary School. You went to Western Pennsylvania district, a miniature district essentially, with multiple buildings with K-12 structures. So you may have a high school principal, middle school principal, or an elementary principal having multiple thousands of students assigned to each one. And as Sherry said, the teachers with primary responsibilities. You might have a teacher with testing coordinator duties. You might have a teacher with band students responsible for student management and maybe behavioral concerns. Although we can't see any evidence of that in our time here. But we get a sense of interior quarters. Now remember, we're in the southern part of the country. In November it was 85 degrees. Fans go into the rooms because the rooms were warm. But the design, each pod is a classroom. So just very beautiful classrooms. Traditional high school row settings in many of the high schools that we saw. That was different in the elementary schools. But technology, corner, dot cams. In one school, we saw students with devices, and in another school, we did not see evidence of it, but the students on breaks had devices. Facilities, again, gorgeous. You can see the stadium design with the rows and the very similar to Williams College Stadium. And students did their morning routines on these fields. Olympic-sized swimming pool in the facility. Designs are very balancing the book of knowledge, the book of wisdom. fountain of knowledge. Showcase, again, it was, they knew visitors were coming, but they purposely demonstrated some of the musical talents and dances of the children, and just remarkable. The Norman Elementary classroom setting, you can see the colors and the design, again, and here we are with morning exercise. We have videos of this, but unfortunately the videos load with a sound delay, so instead of exposing that, but on whistle, the students knew.
They know the
They
routine.
knew the routine goal, all grade levels.
In unison, all 5,000.
And just, again, jump rope. This particular school had a passion for the ocarina, which is a music instrument in that particular region, and jump rope. So schools were allowed to personalize in certain regional areas or areas in which they wanted to prosper. And because of the differences in the climate of the country, certain parts of the regions were built for certain sports. So jump rope, soccer was big in this particular school. And you can see Sherry in the middle.
You're looking for me on the wall.
And music classroom, but you can see the joy in the children's faces. I love this picture of this little girl in front, giving the symbol, and just the excitement. But when you think of intentionality design, the school, certain parts of the school are open in the weekends and evenings for tutoring or for extra help or for families to come in as almost a community center. This is on a third floor patio, overlooking parts of the apartment complexes and homes. And again, you can see how beautiful the flowers and the tables. Again, purposeful rooms designed for specific activities, calligraphy room, model conference rooms, we saw rooms like that. And here's an elementary classroom. Again, nice table designs, students have an opportunity for conversation. In this particular lesson, the students were given a charge of using a certain budget to purchase supplies, and then for the supplies they had to create a tree and include the different supplies and materials they use. So they're using both financial as well as scientific, and having everyone do the
And
presentation.
explain how this is,
So you can see the kids working together on designing with foam board. The kids came up and had to do presentations. The teacher congratulating the class at the end of the activity for their designs. And this would happen in about 30-minute classroom period. And again, from one of the second floors, just looking out again to see the facility. But something that is probably worth noting is you can see on the fence lines and the symbols, those are also pictures of sports heroes that was recognized by that particular school. There was, again, really intentional focus on a lot of times when you walk into our schools, you see the picture of the family or what the school's named after, and that's it. Everywhere we went, every building, every hallway, every classroom, there was historical figures. The classroom in the building was used as an instructional tool. Very impressive the way in which the design was done. Every fence post had a picture of the millennium on it for the students to emulate and pay attention. And again, just to get a sense of visuals. This is the library. This was a reading bubble. This library actually had 2 slides in it for the kids to actually climb on the slide. But just a beautiful space. Again, the color, how it tops, no carpet. Once again, Sherry acting as the dignitary for the group with one of our principals that spent sort of morning to late evening with us. And still smiling. And we had an opportunity to meet with a lot of kids.
These two little boys were so impressed. These two little boys were so impressed. I was talking to them in Chinese, and Dave was talking to some people nearby, and I told them who he was, and their eyes got about this big. And you can see that they don't really care if I'm in the picture or not. They really want a picture with Dave. And then we're in the language that we want to say Windsor-Plainsboro. This is the 40-minute speech on Friends of American Education.
And knowing that they had guests, I asked the students normally dress up for club, and the answer was no. But knowing they had guests, they did have the students dress up in advance and put on performances. As we went around the floor time with classroom to classroom, the students began performances just to showcase their talents. And again, just remarkable talent throughout. Another example of a school in the design. Again, you can see how the students were all there in uniform to greet. And in this particular school, we seniors that became our tour guides and had conversations. And it was an opportunity for them to practice English. And the students that I had the opportunity to interact with were all fluent in English. Just an example of our classroom. Again, Sherry in the middle with a group of elementary students. We went to different portions of that facility, so she went to the elementary route and I went to the high school route. And again, just how the outside is also used. This is the model UN room. The whole room is designed. Now, it's obviously used for other purposes, but it's built as a competition space for model UN. Again, it's a 25-foot smart board. Incredible. The library here. And then the presentations towards the end with the full delegation coming back. So we met in Beijing for 3 days, went to our regional provinces. They split us up into which should be 6 teams of 30, with the college board reps mixed throughout, as well as the regional reps mixed throughout. And then we all came back and had a final delegation presentation and then showcase the student performances. And then on the last day, we went to the Temple of Heaven on the way to the airport before the 14-hour flight back. 5 movies and I still have 3 hours to go. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of our delegation takeaways. Just as a system, as an educational system, and this is the delegation takeaways, things that happened on that last presentation for all 6 delegations. There was a real feeling of the strong value of history and culture. It was just evident everywhere we went. The feedback from everyone was such pride in one's nation, such pride in one's schools, and pride in history from the Confucius principles through now to today. But there was also a real openness to ask, what are other systems doing? What are the districts doing? What are you individually doing? But if John Dewey had recorded his meeting more than 5 different times on the trip, education to Guru in the United States 100 years ago, but the realities of the educators we're talking about, American educators that we study here, as well as some of our modern, the philosophers of modern TED Talks. The reality was there was a real desire to stay current, to honor history, but to stay current with modern trends.
It was actually, I saw signs in a couple of the schools that I had on that said, absorb the Chinese education and absorb Western education. Like they're very open to learning everything.
When it came to as a nation, what I would say is in what's being built today, there was very clear purpose and very clear design and real intentionality. And it was evident through Beijing and also China around the amount of infrastructure that's being built. And as I said, built with intentionality. So when I was at one site, there was 4 different high-rises going on, and I said to the principal, are those all students going to come to you? Because I'm thinking about residential growth a lot these days. And he said, yes. And I said, so where are they going to be housed? He said, on the other side of the campus, we're building space for 3,000 more right now. So they were already in expansion, the anticipation of what's coming. And so just impressive. And he had no concern about how that was going to be funded, because it was funded by the national government. Very different than the way we have to think about funding. So expenses, when the teachers are needed, again, assigned by the Ministry of Education for the region, not to a local board of education, to try to figure out in a 2% capital analysis what you're allowed and what you're not allowed. Students come, you have teachers. And teachers are assigned by the regional ministry, not from the principal. Resources, again, rich, vast resources, and again, as I just mentioned, was if the students were there, the staff was there. Now, large classrooms, high school 50s, low 50s, and I'd say 50 to 52. In elementary, upper 20s to mid 30s. But it worked. Sometimes what could happen instructionally is limited by space. Right? So if you have 50 students in the classroom and those, it's really turning off. It's hard to move the furniture around. Right? It's just there's some of those limitations. That's not what we saw in the elementary classrooms. In the elementary classrooms, we saw that design, and that was in multiple. Yes, there is some classrooms. But there's also certain classrooms, like the science classroom, which was the table with 6 students. Actually, there's 5 with benches and space always for the teacher. So that we don't have the space always for the teacher.
That's something that they're in the process of changing. It used to be that you tested into every level, and we do still test into the high school. But at this point, they were very proud to show us that anyone in the neighborhood could come to this school. So the high school had a dorm for kids who had tested in, but anyone in the neighborhood, and they were very, very proud of that fact. So they're really trying to grow and develop education. I'm very impressed with it.
So we had an opportunity to shop around. Now, when I think about Beijing from a traffic perspective, I think of LA on steroids. There was nothing but the drivers would often say, we're 15 minutes away, but it can take an hour depending on traffic. So it was just depending on the time of day, and sometimes it didn't matter the time of day. But on our way back, when President Trump was there was a whole different traffic pattern. Sometimes 2 hours plus 15 minutes because the city was in shutdown. There was an emphasis on cleaning or discussion. We didn't necessarily see the discussion about air quality, cleaning the air, moving towards solar. Again, thinking about residential growth with the one-child policy going away 7 or 8 years ago. This is the first time elementary schools are seeing more girls and boys, and there's an anticipation of population growth for the future. Again, roads and highways constantly, everywhere we look, there was growth happening. And you can see from the plane some of the power plants that were being built in the outer outskirts of, or had been in the outskirts of Beijing. From a takeaways, when we talked to the delegates in China that were representing the Ministry of Education, they were talking about takeaways about student creativity. They were talking about the importance of encouraging collaboration for future business and future economic needs for their students in the workplace. And it's important valuing and supporting all aspects of student development. I will say that the term whole child is all over. But whole child was being talked about. Now it is a little bit different than what we're talking about. But there's a lot of overlap and a lot of similarity because they're talking about whole child in the sense of full development. So not simply the academic, but when you talk about that, you talk about there's a 2-in-1 philosophy, 2 clubs or sports in 1 art. The importance that every student has to participate in 2 in 1. And that was coming from the Ministry of Education in Beijing, pushed out to the regions. So I'm sure it's being implemented a little bit different. Every time a state or a department of ed in the United States rolls something out, it's interpreted in all that local thing in different schools. But we saw evidence of the 2-in-1 in the schools that we visited.
These are things that we observed that, like they're making, as you can see from our presentation, we probably had a lot to learn from them. And this is things that we observed them talking about that they were trying to absorb from interacting with American education. Focus on mental health. That was brought up numerous times throughout the delegation. In fact, we're going to listen to just a very quick 2-minute clip in a minute where we'll talk about that. Particularly one initiative. Less testing in lower level schools. I mentioned that before. They're just trying to make neighborhood schools and not put the pressure on young kids to be tested. And this clip we're going to listen to, which is the Minister of Education in China. And he says that we should look at not only at academic performance, but at mental health, physical health, and volunteer work. Which is sort of a more well-rounded person. We're listening to Lloyd Shanley. You can see his title there, which is fairly impressive. He gave a lengthy speech, and we're going to try to play a 2-minute, 17-second clip. But just to frame that a little bit, just before he gets into this piece that we have recorded for you all, he talks about how their school sends more students to Beijing University. Beijing University is a top university, so you have to get the highest test scores in order to get into Beijing University. And that they're learning to focus on the total child development, and the kids are getting the highest test scores. So one of the things that she said just before, or he said it and she's interpreting. You're going to hear Chinese and then you're going to hear English. We hope you can hear it. That's what we hope. But this is what they're saying that they can learn from us. And Gerard, get prepared to help us make this work.
第二个方面是开展学生综合素质培养，从市场品德、行业水平、 健康、艺术、素养、社会实践等方面对学生进行评价，并将中文书的评价作为招生录取的重要议题，引导学生前面。
Besides, students are given a comprehensive assessment. They are assessed in terms of their discipline, academic performance, mental health, and social work, and the result of all of them will serve as reference for college admission.
教育是力的素人，是育人培养人的工作。
Education is also about how to make students and leading them up morally.
不能够仅仅看分数，应该要求学生到前面发展。
We should not only focus on the schools they get, we should also encourage them to have a all-around development.
所以我们建立了一个学生中的素质评价，力求通过这个评价来引导学生得智力美方向。
That is why we have this comprehensive assessment. This is in order to enable students to focus on their abilities in all aspects.
现在我们高中录取和大学录取也不能单单只看成绩，还要看公司中的素质评价。
So we believe that the admission to high school and admission to college should not only rely on their schools, we should also focus on what they do outside of school, for instance, their social learning and other academic background.
在这个方面，美国的学校、美国的教育做得很好，我们应该向他们学习。
In the assessment, you guys have much better than us, and we should really learn from you.
第三是该有这样精神。
And we heard that echoed in other schools as well. One of the middle schools that we were in commented repeatedly throughout the day. Our focus is on helping our students create a happy life in the future. What will they need? They will need their education. They will need a healthy body. They will need, like mental health. And so this was a repeated theme throughout our trip, that they had a lot to offer, but they were also listening to what we had to say and some of our successes.
It's just in closing, as you can tell that picture, it's just one of those life-changing, remarkable experiences that I'd happily go back. I don't know if my wife would want me away for 12 days again, but I'd be happy to go back and experience another region. We learned so much. We grew from the experience, and it's just it's a remarkable country with a very clear dedication towards the future, towards the development of children, and they're backing it up with what they're doing in the classroom. And so anyone who sees education as a cornerstone to the development of one's nation, it's something that we need to keep in the forefront for our youth, for our focus moving forward as a nation. We can learn a lot from China in the way they're investing in their children. So for the Board of Education, just questions before we move on to the next topics on the agenda.
Okay, what are some specific changes, whether policy or approach, that you see directly applicable for regular students?
It's a great question, because ultimately the structures are very different. So things that were done with the structure of the teacher's day, the reality is it's not necessarily implementable. We're not going to put students in the classroom and assign system duties to the system principals. But I think we have and we can continue to think about how we put students and teacher voice for the development of our schools and the way we make changes. And I think we've done that as a district over the years, but that wasn't evident. The teachers took such a tremendous pride in the schools. Not that ours don't, but it was also into the way in which they were, or what they were asked to do to contribute to the school. So I think when we think about investment in school culture, planning, there's a lot of takeaways that we can take from that.
If I may add something, there is something that I observed when I was there that I do think we could actually do, or at least I could do in my department pretty quickly. As I've talked to some of my teachers about it, one thing that, the teachers had all these competitions, one of the things it had to do every week was observe a certain number of colleagues and write up compliments to that teacher, suggestions for improvement, and takeaways for themselves in how they can improve as a result of this. And when I mentioned this to my teachers in the language department, they were not at all interested in the competitions. But when they heard this, they were like, we'd like to do that. We'd like an opportunity to observe other teachers and exchange that way. So that's something I think we could.
And to that actually part of embedded in our strategic plan, that year instructional aspects. So there's aspects, we have to make sure the structure was done in a way that was right. It wasn't in what we observed, but within the context of our environment, it's actually something we're working towards the next steps of implementation. Right, in the strategic plan, that's something that we're sort of playing around with now, with that peer-to-peer classroom observations. But there's a lot of things that take five that's better than happening with respect to our workshop on. So, I think there's a lot of takeaway of met the architects already and showing them books that I brought back that have some of the architectural design and some of the intentionality we've done. We have a tendency to say we may just throw the room and it's all blocked, throw a carpet down, throw the chairs, and that's the room's design. That is not how rooms are designed across the schools that we saw. But again, we fully recognize that we've shown newer schools, newer news in schools. So the school we saw on the last day was school number 2 in Beijing. The wing we saw is a 2-year-old school. The wing we saw is a 1-year-old wing. They did not take it. What we saw was the best technology in that wing. Digital lockers, with punch codes. We didn't see we were still changing the cycle every 5 years. But so even like locker technology, real intentional development. That's design principles and something we can also walk away from in institution. There's a lot of positive how it's framed about the work in the community as well. And that responsibility of building bridges, which again, we start thinking back to what we overlaying in the strategic plan is a big part of communication.
I have a question about dress code. It looked like the students were wearing, sometimes they were releasing uniforms, sometimes they weren't. And was there like a purpose to it? Every school in China, the students all wear sweatsuit type uniforms. And sometimes the teachers, like if you notice in one of the videos, the teachers were all wearing red t-shirts. Like they could wear something on the bottom, they had to wear the red t-shirt, that's the teacher's uniform. In most cases, like it was all blue and white, the kids all matched. In the elementary school, it looked to me like the boys were all wearing blue jumpsuits and the girls were all wearing red. But yes, it is the school rule. You see kids all over Beijing and they all, but you can tell what school it is because they're wearing school uniform. It's the norm.
What did they learn from you guys? What did the handband learn from you guys? What's the purpose of their arrangement?
So they bring 180 educators over, 160 plus the college board folks. It's a huge investment. So there was, for the regional delegates, so what the region did was when Fujian sent provincial delegates to stay with us for the whole experience. So they had 4 or 5 delegates that traveled, had a 10-day experience, or 10-day on the ground, 2 days of travel, 10-day experience with us. From the purpose of the school, there's a lot of showcasing, partnering, and then there's a desire to create sort of sister city school partnerships. So there was a signing day and this idea of partnership. With the desire to send students over for summer experience, there was a desire to send teachers over for a 3-year period. Now, in New Jersey, there's certification concerns. I've actually started talking to the Department of Ed about the exchange possibilities. New Jersey certs are different than what happens in Texas and what happens in Utah, and what happens in Delaware. So that's all very different. But, as we look towards building a dual language learning program, one of the things that we're going to do is teachers and development of teachers. So some of the things that we talked about was in the dual language program, if everyone wanted to host a teacher from the world, what would that exchange look like? And what schools, we went to a workshop on Texas schools, the amount of support they provide teachers coming internationally, remarkable. And it's something you have to think about how you get a driver's license, how to run an apartment, so what's the culture of dating, to communication, to Twitter, to Snapchat. So they have a whole induction program and partners and professional development that's very big with all of the teachers. So even like looking at it, we're exploring, will language be successful in implementation? And we have every hope that it is. One of the challenges that we know we have is the staff. And we're going to have to look for ways to find staff members that are fluent in Mandarin and proper credentials. So that's just something we've also talked about. So things that we talked to the schools, the English school reps. Again, a lot of people have showcased that experience to get feedback on the program. Everyone benefits from that experience where you get the job well done. But you also benefit from talking about what you value and what you're excited about the program. There's something that's, there's sort of like an intrinsic value of being forced to host, to then talk and showcase your school. It's something that you go through as a staff, whether it's a state visit or whether it's a group of education from another school community coming to see part of our high school schedule gets looked at a lot around the state. And every time there's a visit, there's a learning opportunity for our staff as much as there is for other staff coming. And so they look at it as an opportunity to showcase. The one school that we saw as a 5,000 K-12 building, we were the first Westerners to ever visit that school. And so there's tremendous pride in showcasing their school. And it was remarkable. It's the kind of school that many of us would want to send children, myself included. And so such love in that school, the staff, the kids, and the principal, that they're private. So and that came through. So you know they spent a lot of time on making that school out. And then the principal even multiple meeting channels as well as some of the staff. So there's an opportunity to go through partnerships. And we reach out and we've been able to stay in touch with them.
Okay, thank you.
All of them took pictures of the PowerPoint we were sending there. So they got some specific concrete information about their own schools.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the nice report. I think whenever there's an exchange of culture, there will be sparks and ideas and beneficial to both sides. Now, I have a question in particular to dual language immersion. I'm aware of in China there are international schools, so-called, and their primary language is actually English. I'm not aware of the regular schools offer similar dual language immersion or not. I know they learn English as a foreign language, 2 classes a week or something. But is there DLI kind of program in China?
In the schools that we visited, we did not see that, but we did see language instruction in English. And so there was from first grade up, we saw examples of English instruction occurring in China to the students. And so to the point where we met some juniors and seniors that were very much fluent in talking about American pop culture.
In fact, some of the schools were almost like a dual language school. They had some of the schools had enforced reading a half hour every day at the same time. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday you read in Chinese, Tuesday and Thursday you read in English. So there was some of that. I don't know how extensive that is, but I know that we did that too. Not everything.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to our first opportunity for public comments. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern for members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes, and all statements should be directed to the presiding officer. The public comment period will be limited to 60 minutes. If anyone would like to speak? Okay, no big rush. We're going to move on then if nobody gets up. Okay. I'll close the public comment. Committee reports. Curriculum committees first.
The curriculum committee met on December 11th. When we discussed the new criteria for eligibility into the 6th grade honors and accelerated math program. 5th grade parents will have access to Indian Park and math scores within the next week so that they will know if their child is eligible. The Data Services Office has worked to develop a view in Genesis that provides the data points in the chart, which will include a link to the parent presentation PowerPoint. The committee discussed the plan to have one honors and accelerated class on each 6th grade team in the middle schools and a teacher resource specialist to work with them to support the transition in the program next year. The funding for this position will be cost neutral by using the current A&E budget line for staff to fund this position. The committee reviewed the superintendent's recommendation to allow a research project entitled Harvard's Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, Next Generation Science Standard Assessment Field Test to proceed. All institutional review board protocols will be followed. The committee next discussed the changes and updates to the high school program of studies for 2018-19, as was presented by Martin Smith at the last board meeting. The committee recommends approval of the 2018-19 high school program of studies. The committee supports the acceptance of the donation of a violin and 2 violas from the Lynn family, residents of Plainsboro. The committee recommends approval of the consultant from O'Brien to provide a workshop entitled Art of Comprehension for the February 16, 2018 Professional Development Day. The cost is $250. The curriculum committee also recommends approval of the revised location for the Model United Nations to University of Pennsylvania. This is happening in January. It was originally approved in September to Boston. The cost of the trip is approximately $450 per student. The next meeting date will be January 11th.
Any questions?
I have a question. When you're talking about resource teachers for 6th grade, what is it, A and H? What are you calling this math now? This is A and math?
Honors and accelerated, H&A.
6th grade honors and accelerated is supposed to be basically A and E math. Isn't that true?
It will be based upon the program that was the A&E program, yes.
Okay, so you're going to have A and E math teachers teaching those classes.
We'll have a teacher from each team who will teach a section of that class.
So these teachers are not specifically A and E math teachers.
They are all math teachers. And they will all be H&A math teachers. They are all math certified. They're all highly qualified to teach math in the middle school. But we're recommending, because it's a transition to a new preparation, that next year we have support for them to ensure that there's consistency across all of the teams and across the two schools, the two Grover and Community Middle School.
Are any of the teachers who previously were 6th grade A and E math teachers going to be teaching these classes?
That may be possible. We don't know what the exact staffing will be and whether or not the person who's currently teaching that will be teaching 6th grade or will be teaching something different at that point. The resource teacher will work on the development of the curriculum over the summer and also work to support, just as we have currently. We've had teacher resource specialists in the 4th and 5th grade as we've made the redesign in the program there to be able to support the teachers, to be able to go in and work with them and make sure that there's consistency of resources and consistency of implementation so that the level of rigor that we've always had in the program can be able to be maintained.
Why do you need to change the curriculum in any way?
Because
The same thing in that curriculum we have for 6th grade.
we will have to make some slight adjustments. We started a year ago with these teachers, one coming to the Summer Institute that we held last year, and then also meeting during the summer last year to talk about any adjustments that would be necessary within the curriculum. There will be some specific adjustments that will be needed within. because the students who are coming out are not coming out from a program which was sheltered in 4th and 5th grade, but they're coming out from an experience in which they were integrated into all of the classes. So we will need to take a look at the curriculum to ensure that we can maintain the same level of rigor.
So there's a possibility that these students will not be prepared for the 6th grade AAU curriculum, is what you're saying?
No, that's absolutely not true.
That's what you just said.
No, we're saying that we need to be able to support the teachers so that the teachers understand the expectations so that all the students who are eligible for the program can be successful.
My question is, why would you need to change the curriculum in any way?
Because the students are coming out from a different experience moving into this program. So there will be a transition, and in addition, the teachers who are teaching it, we had one teacher teaching previously. We'll now have one teacher on each team who will be teaching this, so we need to be able to support them to ensure that there's the same level of rigor for the program.
Well, that's my big concern, is that you have the same number. And I'm also concerned that these kids coming from 5th grade, not having had A&E math, may not be able to do the work for the 6th grade A&E math.
We are confident that students will find success within the program.
Well, I hope that you're not going to dilute the rigor of it.
We are not going to dilute the rigor of the program.
Anything else on curriculum?
I may want to add a little bit. My understanding is that there's certain part of the math program by the end of 5th grade will have to be included in the 6th grade part of it. I mean, certain, like, that's my understanding. So meaning the 6th grade math compared to the past AE is going to be actually added a little bit more content. But the end goal is to be able to get them ready for the 7th grade Algebra 1. That's my understanding.
Yes, that is correct. We will make adjustments to ensure that the students will be able to enter into the 7th grade Algebra 1 Honors and Accelerated program. And again, the sequence of courses will continue, so there'll be a little bit of a transition, as we stated, as we've stated all along, in the 6th grade, but that the program will then continue on with the same level of expectations, so that 7th grade will have Algebra 1 Honors and Accelerated. In 8th grade, there'll be Algebra 2 Honors and Accelerated. In 9th grade, there'll be Geometry Honors and Accelerated. In 10th grade, there'll be Pre-Calculus Honors and Accelerated. In 11th grade, the students would take AP Calculus BC, and in 12th grade, the students would take the multivariable calculus course, so that the sequence of courses from Algebra 1 to multivariable calculus remains the same, but in 6th grade, we want to be able to make sure that we support so that the students are all prepared and find success in that accelerated program.
Finance Committee?
Okay, the committee met on December 12th. The committee reviewed the agenda items and supports them. Dr. Russo informed the committee that the district is renewing its agreement with the auditors with the company with an increase of 1% over last year. The district is planning to sell solar renewable energy credits in January. The district does this twice a year. Staff provided an update on the 2017-18 budget process. In other business, Dr. Russo informed the committee that Senator Turner acknowledged receipt of our resolution about food service procurement, that's where we passed for three prior meetings, and I raised a concern about coordination between custodians and security officers after school, after hours at school. Our next meeting is Tuesday, January 16th.
Any finance questions? Okay, that brings us to the voting portion. Administration, can I have a motion on items 1 to 7 plus the yellow addendum sheet? Isaac and Carol. Any comments on administration?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Flores. Just wanted to share on the one policy that's going for second reading this evening. After our last board meeting, a member of the public did come forward who, the policy is bed bugs, which is a topic that no one likes to talk about, but we do need to talk about. And a member of the public who's a medical director in a different type of facility came forward and had good conversation with us, and then followed up an email sharing some policies that they work with in medical facilities. We both exchanged recognizing that there are some differences, but just he thought it would be really good to share some of the practices they have, and we reviewed those. He also raised some questions that, we'll continue to investigate, especially as it relates to buses. And I did talk to transportation, and we've not dealt with that on our buses yet, but it is something that Mary Pearson over in transportation is investigating to see with all the bus companies how we would handle such. But we've not made any changes at this point to the policy and regulation that was put forth, because it is the practice that we do follow. And as far as also in the medical field, the eradication and clearance of the schools, I just want to make it clear to our group here that we follow an integrated pest management policy related to any pests and pest treatment in our schools that's governed by the state. And so we have to follow that very clearly. It's not always seen in policies that you would think, why don't we see about treatment for things like that? Because it's handled in a separate category under the integrated pest management plans that every school district in the state of New Jersey must have, which also starts with the, I'll say, the least chemical type of treatment first, and then graduates up as you carry that policy through. So it was great to have that interaction with a member of the public, and we learned from each other. So just wanted to share that related to the policy and regulation for second reading tonight.
Okay, any other comments, administration?
Yes.
Mr. Weisenstein.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor-John.
Yes.
Ms. Gates.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes. Curriculum, I have a motion on items 1 to 5. YZ, Dana. Any questions or comments on curriculum?
So, a couple of people have asked me a couple of questions that I just wanted to clarify. So one is, how does the superintendent know that in fact, if the student decides to take an option course in high school,
Right.
that course that child should take it?
Right, so the proposal is that in this coming next school year, in 18-19, in September, instead of, for ninth graders, instead of following the sequence geometry, algebra 2, that they would take algebra 2, then geometry. But in terms of option 2, for any 8th grade student who is coming over, if they're going to do a math option 2, they would continue with the same option 2 that we've had in the past, geometry, so that they would still then go into the algebra 2 class. The difference would just simply be that when they move on to 10th grade, instead of taking geometry in 10th grade, which the majority of students will be doing, they will go into pre-calculus honors. So we will, for this summer, we will continue the same sequence with option 2 of geometry for any student who would like to do that sequence in between 8th grade and 9th grade.
And then the second question was, there was some, I guess, some confusion about whether this is starting for freshman.
Right.
So if the student is currently not clear on geometry, they would still progress into algebra as a sophomore.
Yes, students who are currently in the high school would continue on with the sequence as it has been. So the majority, not all, but the majority of freshmen are currently taking geometry. So those students who are actually in the H&A sequence would go on to pre-calculus as they always had. Those students who are in geometry honors or in geometry college prep would move on to algebra 2 next year. The change would largely affect freshmen, next year's freshman class. Sure. Well, the main, well, we'll make sure that they do understand, and we review and have to accept every single option too. So it's not just a matter of like you go off and do it without an approval process. So there is a whole process, and besides the presentations, you actually have to apply for an option too. And if we see that any student's not, we'll talk with that student so there's not a possibility for that type of mistake. Mainly because we know that next year we're fundamentally not going to be offering very many geometry sections, and we don't don't want, because there'll be so few, the majority of students will be taking Algebra 2 next year, both freshmen and sophomores, and so therefore we're not really going to have, it's not to say that we won't have any, because we will have geometry honors and accelerated, and we might have a section or so, but because it's going to be a very small number, we don't want to have a chunk of students who would be option 2ing, and then all of a sudden we'd have to be creating a series of sections for them. So just to be able to maintain the staffing and to be ensure that we don't end up with singleton classes, it's the best sequence to just continue as we always have over the summer for the option 2s with geometry for this one summer. After this summer, then it would switch to Algebra 2. But it's just for this coming summer in terms having to do with scheduling issues and staffing issues and wanting to ensure that we don't end up with a group of students who end up having to be in a singleton section, and it can only happen, and therefore they can't take their music class or they can't take some other class because of whenever you offer singletons, you start to limit what can happen in the rest of the day.
Well, you see, it's the last way. Actually, I have more of a comment. I think the program of study for high school, I take as an example how our district in a decision. I'm very happy for the adjustment. It's based on a recommendation from program reviews, from the teachers and the administrators, and some of the community members as well. So I'm very happy to see some of the changes, and I think the community should appreciate that as well. Now, on top of that, I also want to express my appreciation as a board member for the past 3 years. This will be probably the last, well, actually tomorrow there will be another meeting, but official meeting as of today, will be my last meeting. So I want to express my appreciation to my peers, board members, to the administration, and to the community. I think for the 3 years, even though I was over 50 already when I got on the board, but I believe for the past 3 years, actually as a person, grew quite a lot. And I believe the open growth mindset, I think the 3 years experience really taught me a lot. I think the 2 takeaways I would say is, number 1, appreciation. Appreciation is probably the most important. Even though, I may say, hey, I have a PhD in physics, but I appreciate the physics teacher because I cannot teach physics. Even a PhD in physics, but my wife says she can teach. Now, appreciation is the key. And also, not just appreciate people who support you, but to appreciate people who oppose you on opinion basis. So that's the takeaway, number 1. And number 2 takeaway is really work together. As I mentioned it in an example, so not a single person can run this district and make it better and better. So we have to trust one another and work together on this. And I really see more openness in the district in terms of dialogue and moving forward. And I like the direction to go. I love the dual language immersion moving forward. I think the new math redesign will produce more higher level math students in the years to come. So I'm optimistic in terms of where the school district is going, and I really want to have all the community members taking a more constructive and positive approach, even when we have a different opinion, but let it build on top of what we have and make it more of a constructive criticism if there's any. So with that, I thank you again for everybody here and the public for giving me the opportunity to serve for the past 3 years. Thank you.
All right, anything else on curriculum? Right, it's kind of a low cap.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Hurst. Ms. Ho?
Yes.
Ms. Fruit?
Yes.
Mr. Weissman-Chang?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor-Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Page?
Yes.
Mr. Chang? Mr. Flores?
Yes. Okay, finance, your motion on items 1 to 12. Taylor and Louisa. Any questions or comments on the finance items?
I have a question. I'm wondering, I want to confirm that the new synthetic turf field fill will be virgin fill. Is that true?
I'm sorry,
For the turf fields,
what about that?
will the fill on a new turf field be made of virgin rubber rather than old tires?
Would be made in Persian rubber as opposed to old tires. The synthetic turf co-op that just,
For replacement of synthetic turf fields at High School North and High School South for a total of $1,039,800.
If I remember the contract correctly, it calls for a testing of any field that's on the current field, and for that to be tested. If it tests eligible for reuse, it could save, I believe, if I remember correctly, I put $50,000
Per field.
per field on the overall cost. That's an option that we can select in this particular bid package. We can also deny that and it would be refill. So it's just a cost-saving option within the contract allows for a $50,000 after the fill is tested. And so it's just an option that's available within the contract, so it provides for that flexibility.
And so there's a possibility of reusing the same fill we have now?
It wouldn't be able to fulfill the entire field, but it would be able to offset the cost to fulfill. Again, it has to go through a testing process.
And the fill we have now is made of old pipes, right? Is that true?
That I don't know.
That I don't know. I'd have to find that out, Carol, and get back to you.
We would need more information on that.
But essentially, we would be recycling instead of just landfilling the fill. We did look at other alternatives. One of the items that is available is it's a cool fill that's used in warmer climates, but no one has been able to supply the chemical makeup of it for us, and so we were reluctant to look at that because we don't know 5-10 years from now if it's going to be something that we're going to say it was good at the time, but is not. Some fields that are local have gone with a cork fill that turned into a major maintenance item because it needs to be watered, because it ends up with static electricity landing on the kids, and the kids are taking all the cork off on their uniforms, and it's not worked out very well. So the option that it seems that most have been going with is recycling the fill that's on their fields, because you know it's already been on your fields and all of that. But I'll look into the chemical makeup and let you know.
About saying item 12, if the emergency is suggested do you still have to do the
We would, because it's not just a football field, it's an athletic field for all sports, as well as for band, as well as for purposes, E-classes, and extension of the classroom, so we would still need it for all purposes.
Okay, thank you.
And Dr. Adderhold, if I could just add, after my meeting with both recreation departments today, it's also used by our community for a whole variety of things, and one of the hardships for both township recreation departments this summer is going to be, because of this work going on, the lack of access to our fields. So as Dr. Adderhold said, it's more than football.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I apologize for interrupting, just talking with Dr. Russo. I would just recommend the motion item number 12 table, just to flush out just a couple of legal issues in terms of just procurement fees, just because there's just a couple of things going around the state with this, just make sure that everything is fine. If it all checks out, it shouldn't be listed again, the reorganization meeting, which is going to be within the next January 2nd, 10 days, so close to the time.
It doesn't affect us
No.
on contracts or anything.
I do apologize for bringing it up, but we were talking about it stuff.
Somebody do the rounds, who's here to get this off.
So since there's a motion pending, and the two board members who brought the motion, Taylor and Ms. Costello, are you okay with amending to table number 12?
I was just asking, I didn't pose it.
No, he's asking it.
So are you okay with tabling it now?
So then they're reflecting that number 12 is from the table,
We'll vote on number 11.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Bell.
Yes.
Ms. Pruitt.
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Mr. Delogeron.
Yes.
Mr. Chang. Yes. Ms. Hurd. Ms. Cage.
Yes.
And Mr. Blair.
Yes. We have a motion on personnel, item 1, plus the re-event that we have Michelle and Dana. Any questions on personnel items?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Cruz.
Yes.
Mr. Wesley Chang.
Yes.
Mr. Delajano.
Yes?
Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Ms. Hurst.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Gage.
Yes.
And Mr. Flair.
Yes. I want to acknowledge a retirement, actually leaving the end of the year, but it's Wayne Wendell, he's a social studies teacher at High School North, and when he was at Grover. He's retiring after 26 years with the district. I want to wish him well in the future, and thank him for the times together and the negotiation nights too. All right, that brings us to approval of the minutes. There's going to be a correction. We all have a blue sheet. There's a correction from the draft that came out, so that's what we'll be voting on. Could I have a motion on the minutes of Weisey and Taylor? Questions on the correction before I get to the vote? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Any liaison reports? Any new business?
I have a question. There's a lot of complaints about the showers in both high schools, and they say that, 3 out of 5 or 3 out of 4 or something don't work, and I'm wondering how some of those are going to be fixed so that they work for the students.
Specifically, the high school north.
Both high schools.
Yeah, we've had our mark review. Unfortunately, those concerns were brought up on social media and not brought forward to the administration's attention, so a community member brought forward those. I'm just encouraged from a process perspective, when parents have concerns regarding facilities, that they please let the athletic director and/or the building administration know, and then we can work to address those matters. Once those matters were brought forward to our attention, we had our mark inspect the showers at both north and south, locker rooms as well as gym locker rooms. We found several problems with some of the dials where the devices on the inside mechanisms were spinning, so we couldn't regulate hot and cold water. We found hoses ripped off some of the handicap stalls. Bottom line is, every shower is being addressed in some manner. We have showers that are working in facilities, but we have ordered over $3,000 worth of parts. As soon as those parts are received, they will be doing the install to make sure that all the showers are up and working. So we have addressed this with Aramark, and we'll continue to check to make sure that they follow through.
What's the regular inspection procedure for facilities like this?
They're not good enough, quite frankly, because going into swim season, the swim shower should be working. Not only for the swim teams, but for gym classes, right? Because we do have the gym classrooms using it, especially during this quarter. So it's something we're actually meeting with Aramark for our common goals inspection conversation on the Thursday that we return from break, and this is on our list about their inspection cycle. It's not only regarding the actual utilization of the showers, but the way in which they're maintaining the pools. We've had several issues with the chemicals not being regulated to the point where we could not safely put students in the water with pH levels and other things, and they've had to close the pools for instructional use as well as after school, as well as temperature, as well as humidity. So there's been a lot of pool-related concerns regarding the showers, as well as the utilization of the pool itself, as well as the cleaning facilities for the kids, and that's being addressed with Aramark now, and we're looking at some additional options with our with Bill Richter and the advocate monitor of Aramark. We actually were on the phone with him today talking about this exact conversation.
Are you saying this will kind of potentially add those to the advocate inspection? Some of these other
It clearly has to be in the inspection conversation regarding cleaning. One of the components of the advocate contract is it's about cleaning the facilities, not on the maintenance of facilities. So it's a conversation we've also had with advocate regarding taking a look at the maintenance component of that, of the facility, or excuse me, of the contract in Aramark. Thomas Daly, our building and grounds director, who is our district building and grounds director, has well documented this concern to Aramark leadership. And the concerns regarding facilities and facility cleanliness has been well documented with Aramark at this point. We actually met with the regional vice president of Aramark just 2-3 weeks ago to voice our concerns to him directly.
If I can say one thing, going forward, there's no local shut-off for those showers, so they can shut the building down to change them. There's all parts we're going to do that.
But to that, to Dr. Russo's point, please know that also means the fire alarm system, suppression system has to be drained and all that. So the building literally has to be shut down while that work can be done because of the way in which the valves for the building are set up. So it's a process where the building has to be closed. So it's timely in the sense that the break, hopefully this work can be done over break if the parts are received.
Okay, any other new business? That brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. 15 minutes will be provided at the end of the meeting for public comments. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes, and all statements should be addressed to the presiding officer.
Bruce Shelley, President of the Teachers Association. Mr. Chairman, I haven't intended to only make one comment tonight, so I do want to know days their pain and new studies and scheduling. I deliberately didn't thank Leslie for his help on the election night because I know I'd be here tonight. And I want to thank you for the time that you've given to the district. I think there's so much more to give to the community, and I hope you stay involved in the community. But on behalf of the teachers, thank you for the direction that you've given to this community in the years you've been on the board. And I think your Washington's address to the truth comments are well stated, that we don't always have to agree on everything, but we do have one goal in mind, and we are stronger because of that. So thank you for your time and your commitment to the mission.
Hi, my name is Ruben Rao. I'm a teacher at Drive. My first time asking the board questions, so this is for everything. My question is actually to Dr. Applegold and the platform of the time that your experiences. Knowing that Chinese education system, especially in the also India, are experience that dealing with large classroom sizes. What lessons did you take away that you might bring to the teachers and teachers in West Windsor on managing individual populations within a large group setting and just all finding out the pendulum actually taking a point?
Thank you. We can take that offline.
Anyone else? Okay, before I ask for an adjournment, I would like to make some comments. It's been 3 years that YZ's been on the board. You think you were the only one who was going to talk about your last time? In that time, I'll just say you've been an excellent board member. You've been thoughtful, participated in the conversations, and like we've said before, when we disagreed, we each understood that you understood why people had their own opinions, and they came from a good place. And I certainly felt that way with you, that it's been rewarding having you here. And we then I can wind up saying also that we're friends. So I appreciate that. Okay, anyone else? Or yeah.
I just want to say it has been a pleasure serving on the board with you. I really come to respect you and appreciate the time, the effort, the heart, and the sincerity that you put forth to be on the board with us. So I wish you good luck in whatever you do next with your spare time.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to YZ. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, all the best to you.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn. YZ? It's your last chance.
Yeah.
And so, those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all for coming out. Have a enjoyable and safe holiday.